What is going on, all of you vampire hunters out there in the world? I am Games, so thank you for watching this video. Whether you are a new or returning viewer, I appreciate you stopping by. And today I am going to talk about something very special. The last month or so, I have been investing some time into jumping back into Vampire Survivors, but specifically the Ode to Castlevania DLC, which, if you haven't heard, has been out for a few months as of this recording, and is an absolute love letter to Castlevania fans. And what's really interesting is the original Vampire Survivors, like the base game, had a lot of Castlevania DNA without outright copying Castlevania. Obviously, different style of game, but a lot of inspiration and clearly taken from that series. And the most recent big content update for Vampire Survivors sees actual official Castlevania content in terms of characters, a new level, bunch of different items, music in the game, which is really awesome to see. I absolutely love this collaboration. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of talk about non-spoilery stuff here, and by that I mean just what's in the reveal trailer here. I'll be having that on in the background, and then I'll have a spoiler section at the end with actual gameplay to kind of show it off. Most of this will be spoiler stuff probably, but I'm going to give you a basic overview starting right now with the non-spoiler section, light spoilers I should say, because we're showing the reveals. But just for those of you who don't know what Vampire Survivors is necessarily, it is an indie game created by Poncle, came out, 2023, 2022? Let me know in the comments below. I played it for the first time in 2023, near the end of it around Halloween time, and this is easily the most addictive I've ever been to a game, because it is so simple on the surface. I don't know if I ever did a review video for this, I don't think I did. It is so simple on the surface, this game, because all you do is move. That's really all you do. And you defeat enemies like vampires, other stuff, and you collect gems to then level up. And the more you level up, the more gems you need to further level up as well. But every time you level up, you get a new weapon. And so your character will start off with one weapon based on what character you select. A lot of characters, so many different characters, and they each have different weapons that you start off with. And the way it works is that, okay, I was gonna say I thought I looped that. The way it works is that when you can get a new weapon when you level up. You get 3 different options. You can do like a new weapon, or you can do a new like passive. I don't know what they're officially called in the game. Let me know in the comments below. But essentially, you can hold 6 different weapons normally, and then 6 passives, which are usually different ability-related items that can further augment, your already current abilities, like healing automatically, or having more health or extra defense. More projectiles for projectile-based weapons, stuff like that, more strength, and all sorts of stuff. And the weapon variety is very unique. Like, honestly, the fact that there are so many weapons, in addition to what the Ode to Castlevania DLC adds, because it adds a ton of different weapons, and that's great to see. And so you'll keep on fighting, you'll encounter bosses that when you defeat them, they drop chests, and those give you just free upgrades without having to level up. And it's one of those games, each run you do is in half an hour max, with some minor caveats. I'm just doing the basic version here. And it gets to the point where if you survive long enough, it's such a dopamine effect of like getting treasure, getting these upgrades, and just mowing down hundreds and hundreds of enemies. And what's great is that the game has an unlock system, a list of achievements essentially, which I don't normally do in games, but they make these approachable to where it's like a lot of them are revolving on unlocking characters, unlocking stages. And one thing I love in this game in particular, probably my favorite aspect of the game, is evolving weapons. So weapons, usually with like a weapon and a passive combo, and if you max level the weapons, because you can upgrade the weapons too, if they reach the max level of upgrades, and then you get a chest, you'll get the upgraded version, the evolved version of that weapon, which does even more damage. And you fill out a list of like different stuff to do, and usually evolving weapons will lead to other unlocks as well. But it's one of those games that's just super satisfying to get a really good run in. You get the right set of weapons, you find what evolves it properly, and it just becomes just absolutely exhilarating to blast through enemies. And that's what's so addicted to me, to keep doing runs and runs and runs over and over again. I have almost 100 hours in this game now. First batch of like 50 hours when I first played the game at the end of 2023, and another 50 hours because of the DLC here. And let me kind of go into the DLC more without spoiling anything. If you're a Castlevania fan, I would highly recommend this, because this is probably, I would compare this to Smash in terms of how much of a love letter to the series it's presenting is. I would honestly even say maybe more than Smash, because this Ode to Castlevania DLC pack goes above and beyond of just having fan service for Castlevania fans. Like, even the deeper cuts, like they literally say in this reveal trailer that everybody is here. Like, literally, there's so many different characters. I mean, let me know, Castlevania diehards, in the comments below, were there certain characters they left out. There are so many characters to choose from in this game, like genuinely so many. Like, if there's a Castlevania game you've played, chances are at least the protagonist that you play as mainly in that game is in this game playable, which is crazy to see. There are so many different secrets. There is the one stage, Dracula's Castle, that is, I mean, I think easily, objectively, the best stage in the game. There are so many secrets hidden throughout. A lot of bosses taken from previous games. I won't say which ones. First of all, because I don't know all of them, because I've only played a few Castlevania games. Second of all, I don't want to spoil anything, because I think if you're a Castlevania fan especially, you should go in blind to this. But what's great about it is that it is still the same core Vampire Survivors gameplay. So if you're a fan of Vampire Survivors, like, the amount of content on display here is crazy. The great thing about this game, the base game is what, $5? Regular price? This DLC regular price is $4? And keep in mind, this is the only DLC pack I've played, and I have 100 hours of this game. $9 and 100 hours? Like, if you're one of those people that equates money value to game, like, literally, you will get your money's worth out of this game, I can guarantee you. Assuming you get hooked like I do, I suppose. But it's just genuinely so fun. I don't know, it's really such a good game. And now we have all this additional content, which I believe this is the biggest DLC expansion. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that. I know there's been a bunch of others like Contra, Among Us, and some like original packs of content as well. But yeah, you can see 40 new weapons, new characters, music tracks, and yeah, the huge, I mean, the map is massive, the Dracula's Castle map. There's so many things to explore, and it only opens up the further you get and the more weapons you upgrade. And it's just, it's so cool to see. It's great to see Konami recognize Castlevania. I know they've been doing a few collabs with different studios here. They haven't had a new actual Castlevania game in forever. They're doing some of the collections, which is good, so I feel like we're on the cusp of getting a new Castlevania game sometime in the near future. I feel like it's going to happen. But in the meantime, this is amazing. Like, the team clearly has such love for Castlevania. And I was honestly hoping, ever since I played Vampire Survivors, I'm like, because at that point, they were starting to announce like crossover collaborations, and I'm like, literally, Castlevania would be perfect. Like, if they ever added Castlevania DLC, like, this would be absolutely perfect. And it is. Like, this is it, right? It is crazy how much of love letter between the characters, the weapons, little tiny references in the Dracula's Castle level is nuts. And like, some of the unlocks you get, I did end up doing all of the Castlevania DLC related unlocks on that list, which I don't think I did for the base game, but I did for the Castlevania ones because it was achievable enough, and I ended up getting there, and it was just so much fun to do. I love a lot of the new weapons on display, and some of them, I mean, it's funny because like originally in the base game of Vampire Survivors, they have like the whip, which obviously inspired by Castlevania, but here there's like a bunch of different, you know, Belmonts with different whips that you can equip, and they all feel different from each other, which is honestly wild. Like, the fact that they have, what did they say, 30 plus new characters, like, and all the weapons feel different. Like, some of them have some similarities, but they feel quite different overall in terms of their abilities, is like nuts to me. And I don't know, it's just, it's such a love letter. I don't even know how to put it into words. Like, if you were a Castlevania fan, I feel like you almost owe it to yourself to spend the $5 on Vampire Survivors and spend the extra $4 on the DLC for this game, because you will love all the references. It's not, obviously the gameplay's not exactly Castlevania, right? It's not a Metroidvania, it's not a 2D action platformer. It is, I don't even know, this is like its own, what do you even call this? What genre is Vampire Survivors? Let me know in the comments below. But it is so approachable, so I think it'll be easy for you to get into, and you might fall in love with the gameplay, and then play the base game and all the other DLC expansions, because there's so much content here. It's crazy. For the value, it's honestly absurd that like more people aren't talking about this. I don't know. This game, this is something special. This game is really something special, and to have them finally get the collaboration with Castlevania, there's a lot of fun bosses, weapons, characters, secrets in Dracula's Castle. It's really, really fun to see. And it's just like the sense of progression you get, and the dopamine from like getting the right weapon, getting the right evolution, and just plowing through enemies is so satisfying. And it's just more of that in Ode to Castlevania, but with the Castlevania aspects, which couldn't be happier for that. This is honestly, I mean, like, if this is the last DLC pack for this game, I don't know if it will be, I would totally understand, because this is like the magnum opus of crossover content that absolutely goes above and beyond in respecting the source material. Like, this is what you do. Like, I think this is like a once in a lifetime kind of like crossover in terms of getting just like that level of respect. It's absolutely nuts. Like I said, I'd probably put it even above Smash. I mean, it's at least up there with Smash in terms of the level of respect it pays, right? Whereas Smash Brothers is a crossover, a bunch of different series. This one focuses solely on Castlevania and absolutely goes above and beyond. And it's great to see. It's so much fun. It's so addicting, even defeating the same bosses over and over and over again. And if you played some of the Castlevania games, you'll get even more of a kick out of it. But anyways, I think that's going to do it for the non-spoiler part of this review, because I can't say too much else without spoiling stuff, because I need to talk about some stuff here. So with that, I'm going to give you a few seconds to click away. If you do not want to be spoiled, I would highly recommend, if you have not played this DLC expansion at all, do not watch a spoiler review. Maybe if you're a Castlevania diehard who hasn't played Vampire Survivors, maybe watch the spoiler part, because maybe some of these references will get you interested in the game. But with that, I'll give you a few seconds to click away if you do not want to be spoiled. All right, good timing there too. Just the value here is ridiculous to me. All right, I am going to switch over to the actual gameplay here. Let me enable that. There we go. All right. Hopefully audio levels are fine. Who do I want to play as is the question. So I got all of the unlocks I mentioned. I did not unlock all the characters. So there is an item eventually. I mean, if you've played this, hopefully you know. Item later on. First, there's like 3 waves of characters essentially that you can get. There's like the first set of like Belmonts, spell wielders, certain magic weapon wielders like Alucard, Shinoa. And then there's a second set of characters you get after you beat Death. That whole sequence, by the way, where you beat with Death, that was super fun. This game loves to be like a whole like meta narrative, so like that was really cool to see. And there's a whole like, what do they call him? The navigator, the conductor, I think maybe. Let me know in the comments below. I don't fully understand the meta narrative Vampire Survivors, but like they kind of have Death be involved there, which was cool. And then so beating him unlocks a second wave of characters. And then there's an item that unlocks all these crazy characters, like the ferryman, the librarian. Like some of these get wild, like a younger version of Maria, some of the familiars there, and like some of the enemies too, like the flea man, the cave troll. Olrox is in there. Olrox would be a cool one to unlock. I wish I did that. These unlocks I didn't really do, because these are very specific scenarios. If you're a diehard Castlevania fan, you probably already know how to do these kind of things. Like, I have no idea what this means, right? I used a guide to even unlock a younger version of Maria to figure out what that meant. You know, so I guess that one makes sense because of the coat of arms. But I did end up doing all of the unlocks in the list. I mean, maybe buying some of these characters adds unlocks, but I don't know for sure. I feel like since I just beat Castlevania Symphony of the Night for the first time recently, I feel like I have to do Alucard, who I love, by the way. Favorite characters I'm trying to think of. I really like... Oh, who is it that has the Sonic Whip? It's one of the Belmonts. Sonia Belmont, maybe? Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that. Alucard's starting sword I don't really love that much, but he's like okay. It's just like... I don't know, I just absolutely loved like exploring the different secrets of this. And it's so funny to me as someone who played Symphony of the Night for the first time. I'm really glad I finished, because I started Symphony of the Night around the time this DLC came out. And I'm really glad I finished Symphony of the Night before I played this game, because now I know so many more of the bosses, right? Like the Doppelganger, Gaibon, and whatever that one, the pairing of bosses there. Beelzebub, the giant meat mass thing, whatever that was called, with the bodies and everything. And then I recognize some of the bosses from when I played like some of the classic Castlevania games. You know, I've only played Castlevania 1, 3, and Symphony of the Night now, just for a heads up there. So I don't recognize a lot of the references necessarily, but I mean, it's super cool. And like Vampire Survivors, this game is so addicting for me. But it's just great to see all this content like highly respected. We can open the Grimoire here, because the Grimoire is one of my favorite parts about Castlevania, is exploring this here. In case you need any help figuring out how to evolve some weapons, there you go. Yeah, the Sonic Whip I really liked. I really liked the Hydro Whip, I think it was called, which was Trevor Belmont's weapon. I think he was the first I evolved, actually. I really like Trevor. He's fun, and like I think it's Sonya Belmont with the Sonic Whip, although I hate the Skull passive because so many more enemies come up on screen. So I'm not a big fan of that. What else did I like a lot? Discus was pretty fun. The wine glass, it was so funny to me. I love the fact that they turn your expectations when you play as Richter. You get to the throne room. Dracula does this, what is a man? But then he joins you with a wine glass. I'm like, oh my god, that's absolutely perfect. Like, they knew what they were doing there. And then fighting death was great. In terms of the spells, I'm trying to think of what spell was my favorite. I think I liked the ice one, whatever that was called, which I believe was Sypha's spell. That one was really good. The Trident, which was, I think it was Isaac, right? Because Hector was the mace. I get them mixed up sometimes. The Trident I really liked. Eric Lacard's spear weapon was really good. The Star Flail was good. Maria, I really like Maria with her Guardian's Targe that she has. The Custos glyphs and the Dominus glyphs, whatever those are called, those were fun. Unlocking Shaft and playing as Shaft is really cool. Like, I don't know. It's just like some of the references I get now, which is nice. A lot of them I still don't get. To be honest, Trevor and Sypha I really only know. I mean, I played Castlevania 3, but I really got to know them from the Netflix show. But I feel like I'm learning more. Like, whenever I go back to play some of the other Castlevania games, like I own the Advanced Collection, I go back to play those games and be like, oh, I recognize this character. Like, I'm pretty sure Soma Cruz is from one of the Advanced games. Or if I get the DS Collection, maybe I'll recognize like Shinoa or any of the other characters from those. You know what I mean? And so it's like, now I have this basis. And it was just funny playing Symphony of the Night after playing base Castlevania. Base Vampire Survivors, because I'm like, oh, like, the Bible, the book is literally, oh, sub-weapon in Symphony of the Night. The cross, of course, I knew. The axe, the holy water. The rune tracer is in Symphony of the Night. Like, the pentagram is in Symphony of the Night. I'm literally like, these are literally almost taken, like, from Castlevania, which is so funny. Definitely a lot of Castlevania 1 and a lot of Castlevania Symphony of the Night representation in this DLC. Like, I can definitely recognize that. Probably just because those are the main games that I remember playing, and it's just it's a love letter. It's an absolute love letter to Castlevania fans, and it plays so well. It genuinely does, and so like seeing some of the bosses is super cool. I guess I can show off some of the bosses real quick here. Was that Richter? Wait, why did I summon Richter? I know Alucard does some weird stuff with his abilities, but why did he summon Richter right there? I've never seen that before. See, there are things I'm even discovering now. You have the fast travel points like in Symphony of the Night. I think, honestly, Symphony of the Night probably has the most representation out of any Castlevania game in this DLC. I mean, which makes sense because it's probably the most recognizable and the most beloved. Which makes total sense. So I'm really glad I finished Symphony of the Night before playing this DLC fully through. But yeah, just this game is just... It's something special. It really is. You know, like, if you're a Castlevania fan, I'd highly recommend it. And the thing is like, sometimes I don't always recommend, like, fans, like, if it's a crossover, like, fans of the source material to play a game necessarily. But with this, I recommend it highly because Vampire Survivors is one of the most approachable games I've ever played in my entire life because it's so simple. You're just moving around. And so to then be able to just, like, be like, oh, I love this IP, let me check it out, and you jump into it, and all I'm doing, moving the thumbstick and then selecting my upgrades. It is so simple, yet it's so satisfying when you get that great run going. So of course we got the very first boss ever in Castlevania from Castlevania 1. I mean, you gotta start off Dracula's castle with that, right? It's literally the hallway. You gotta start it off with that. Other ones we got, I mean, Medusa's head is here. We got, yeah, the Gaibon and, is it Dragon or something? I don't know. The two bosses from Symphony of the Night. Correct me in the comments below. I don't remember exactly the names. Gale Force, why not? Get some weapon variety in here. It's just like, it's so good. I need to end this video at some point soon because otherwise it's going to keep going on too long. I'm going to do an entire run of Vampire Survivors. Yeah, Beelzebub was great. The whole throne room scene. They have the clock tower. That was fun. Just like the depths below, the caverns. There's so many like areas within the castle too, like underneath and above, and all sorts of places that you can explore. It's so satisfying. No run in this map especially is the same. Like, that's sometimes with some of the other like basic base game Vampire Survivors maps, like you kind of do the same strategy over and over again in a lot of those runs. And sometimes I did in this map, but the map is so big. I mean, like, let's zoom out. That's me right there. The map is so freaking big, and it's not even, the whole map isn't even in the shot here, because you have all the forests to the east, and then you have like the clock tower and other areas like the, was it the library? The library's right there, to the east, and it's like there's so much, all the bosses, all like the familiars you can summon, the warp gates. Man, I don't even know. Play Vampire Survivors. That's really what I'm trying to say here. This game is crazy. It is easily the game I've been the most addicted to ever. Just so addicting, so fun, and as someone who really appreciates the world of Castlevania and wants to play more of the games, like, this is an absolute love letter. Like, if you're a Castlevania diehard, play this. Even if you've never played Castlevania games and you love Vampire Survivors, play this. I would just recommend Vampire Survivors to anybody if they've never played it, because it's so approachable yet so fun, and it's so simple to understand. You move, you automatically attack, and you just upgrade. And it's literally like a slot machine, because the developer, it's literally worked on slot machines. Like, this is literally the definition of the dopamine hit. You know what I mean? It's so good. Anyways, I don't know. I could keep playing this forever. I need to stop at some point. But I absolutely adore this. I'm going to quick let it here before we wrap this video up, because I don't want to spoil anybody. But anyways, everybody, that is going to do it for this review video. So just a kind of a recap here as we wrap up this video. If you've never played Vampire Survivors, just give it a shot. That's all I'm going to say. Give it a chance. It's literally $5. Pick it up and see what you think. If you're a diehard Castlevania fan, I'd recommend you pick up Vampire Survivors and you pick up that DLC. You're going to spend like, what, $11 with tax, at least in the US. And you could get literally, like, I put 50 hours into this DLC alone. You're going to get so much content out of it if you get hooked like I do, which you probably will. Because it's just so simple and just so approachable, but it gets so complex, and there's so much content here, especially with the Ode to Castlevania DLC pack. It is such a good love letter to Castlevania, and it respects that source material so much. And if you're a Castlevania fan and you've played Vampire Survivors and you haven't played Ode to Castlevania, what are you doing? Literally put down whatever game you're playing. Doesn't matter. Don't need to work on your 2025 Game of the Year list. Put it down. Play a little bit. I'm sorry in advance. You're going to get hooked. With that, though, that is going to do it for this review video of the Vampire Survivors Ode to Castlevania DLC. I guess it was also a little bit of a review of Vampire Survivors itself, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Have you checked out Vampire Survivors at all? What do you think? Have you checked out the Ode to Castlevania DLC specifically? What do you think about that? Let's keep it non-spoilers, please, for people who have not played it yet. I want them to experience, especially if they're Castlevania fans, the little references themselves. But definitely let me know your overall thoughts on the game and the DLC. But with that, thank you again so much for watching. I will catch you all on the next video or live stream. Until then, what is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. See you later.